The content herein is for informational purposes only, not intended as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, and is not to be substituted for direct advice from your doctor. The new book, Drop the Skirt, How My Disability Became My Superpower by Amy Rivera, is a memoir of discovery and empowerment that took her from a life of shame and hiding into one of enlightenment and how to live her best life. Amy tells the story of her daily lymphedema battle, a battle that has shaped her life and given her the strength to fight for others. Through lifelong adversity with her disability, Amy developed an activist mindset and feverishly fought to better the quality of her life. Against all odds, through medicine, nutrition, and faith, Amy's journey has led her to overcome her severe lymphedema and manage it with minimal maintenance. Amy is the founder of Ninjas Fighting Lymphedema, a non-profit organization dedicated to the awareness of lymphedema and the education of others. Amy has become the #1 activist and influencer for lymphatic disorders in today's digital media and has dedicated her life to the philanthropic and educational activities that bring hope and help to others who suffer from similar chronic disorders. Check out her new book, Drop the Skirt, How My Disability Became My Superpower, available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. Welcome to Lymphcast, the show that brings together doctors, other health professionals, and special guests to discuss lymphedema, venous disease, and other associated disorders, and what can be done if this is affecting your life. Now it's time to sit back, relax, as it's time to learn all about lymphedema, venous disease, and associated disorders on our show, Lymphcast. Greetings and welcome to Lymphcast, episode number 10. Let's meet our panel and get to it right away. From Minnesota, Dr. Mark Melin. Greetings, Dr. Melin. How are you today, sir?
Good to see you today, Paul. Thank you.
All right, glad you're with us. From Arizona, Dr. Monika Gloviczki. Greetings, Monika. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good to be with you.
Yeah, you too. And from California, Dr. Emily Iker. Greetings, Dr. Iker. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm fine. Thank you, and greetings to all of you. Wonderful staff.
All right, terrific. And the creator of this show and one of the founders of Vita Support MD, creators of Vein Formula 1000, Lymphatic Formula 1000, physician surgeon from New Jersey, Dr. John A. Chuback. Greetings, Dr. Chuback. How are you, sir?
Doing well, Paul. Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here. And we have a tiny little milestone today, everybody, our 10th episode. So That's good. Double digits. We made it this far. And we have a special guest for the 10th episode. So she's a 10 and it's number 10. So there you go. Our beauty queen, our pageant winner. So maybe Monika will make further introductions.
Well, we have an honor and pleasure today to have our 10th guest, Amy Rivera. And Amy, for those of you who don't know her, is a very special person. She is a lymphedema patient, but not only a lymphedema patient. She's a true combatant to serve the others and to create the wonderful foundation. Certainly, she will be able much better to describe all her projects within the foundation and tell us about her extraordinary story.
Well, thank you so much, Monika. I'm sitting here trying to hold back the tears. The honor is such an honor to be on here with you guys. Like I said earlier, as a patient, gratefulness is, I can't tell you how grateful I am for what you do for us in our community. So thank you guys.
The pleasure is ours, of course. Amy, so tell us a little bit about your life, how all lymphedema issue affected your life when you were diagnosed. How was it for you?
Sure. So I was born with primary lymphedema, and it affected my entire right side of my body. It still does to to today, but I can control it primarily, except for in my right leg. It wasn't until I was 3 days old that everything started to go down on the right side of my body, but my leg, it went down a little bit, but then it.
Oh, we have the issue with the sound.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you will have to start again a little bit.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna put this on Do Not Disturb with my other work phone. It was actually someone from the foundation. I'm so sorry. I was born with it. However, I wasn't diagnosed until 2013. All those years, my parents took me to one doctor after another. I went to Shriners. I went to Children's Mercy. I went to every clinic you could think of in the local area, and nobody could tell my parents what was the problem. So you can only imagine how frustrated and disappointed they were. One doctor told my mother was the way she carried me in the womb. So I'm sure she carried that guilt with her for a long time, and obviously it was not her fault. So when I was finally diagnosed in 2013, my right leg was 200% larger than my left leg at that time. Yeah. It was a time in my life where I was tired of feeling depressed, tired of hiding, tired of not being part of my children's lives or my friends, and just not living altogether. So I went to my doctor, my primary care physician, and I said, I have to find out what this is. And he was so rude and so disrespectful and wouldn't even look at my leg and just said, it's just abnormal swelling. Here is a diuretic and you're going to be in a wheelchair, pretty much the rest of your life. There's nothing you can do for it. Well, what is it? Like, what is it? What are you referring to? Let's just start there. And he'd never said the word lymphedema. He just said swelling. So needless to say, I fired him. And I continued to find doctors who would listen and help me. And I didn't even know what it was I needed help with, but I knew if I just continued to ask the questions, that somewhere along the line, I would find some answer. There was no way I was the only one in the world that had this, even though I felt that way. I didn't have friends who had it. Nobody in my family that I knew of at the time had it. None of my siblings. I just didn't belong, simply. And I was tired of not belonging. So once I fired him, I started Googling the words that I was, called as a child: big leg, elephant leg, those type of words. School was hard, to say the least, which is why I entered a beauty pageant, because I wanted to get away from the girl with the big leg. That was my name in school, or the girl with the elephant leg. And I just remember there has to be a reason I have this. There's more to life than this. There's a reason. And when I started seeing the pictures on the internet that looked like my leg, I was blown away. So I started immediately thinking, did my mom go out of the country? Did she get a parasite? Did she pass it to me? Like, I was just thinking all these crazy things because I had never been in these countries where these images were popping up from. I had never left the country at that time in my life. And so I call my mom and I'm telling her I'm looking at all this, and she's like, that's just impossible, And then I started to find physicians online that were describing the word lymphedema. And I thought, okay, what if this is it? What if this is it? So I started calling these physicians one after another. And I did call, the first physician I talked to was Dr. Becker. And at that time, I couldn't afford to go to France or get treatment. And I didn't even know what treatment was really at that time in my life. And then I had found a doctor in Chicago, and I immediately flew there. I had convinced my job to let me fly. And not only did they let me fly, they paid for the trip. And I went to Chicago, and that is where my life forever changed. And that's when I received the diagnosis that I had primary lymphedema.
So it took you and your family practically 32 years, as I know.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
I know, it's completely unbelievable, but
Century with the development of medicine, but that's what happened. And so since that moment you were following the treatment, what happened after?
So I started following the treatment, and I had surgery in 2013. So what she decided to do was do a lymph node transfer. Now this was in the very beginning of us as in us patients learning about these procedures in the United States, so to speak. I mean, they were around, but I obviously didn't know anything. And so everything was so new to me. And when she talked about the transfer, she talks about removing lymph nodes from in this area of my neck and putting them in the top part of my thigh, I'll say, right in the growing area. And she said that once the nodes grow, then the fluid would be able to start to come through that area and come out of my leg. What I didn't know was that I had so much solid in there. I didn't know that the fluid had turned into solid because of the years of lack of treatment. So the procedure, I don't want to say it didn't work, but it wasn't as successful as I had hoped it would be. And that is because I had so much solid in my leg that the little fluid that did come through, it was quite a bit. But we think what happened is it just kind of killed out that transfer. It was too much for that transfer. So since then, I'd had another procedure that didn't work, and it kind of left me feeling hopeless for a while. And that procedure was supposed to be similar to the SAPL, the suction assisted protein lipectomy procedure. However, the doctor told me that's what he was doing here in St. Louis, but I woke up and it was just normal liposuction. It's very tragic, so to speak. So at that time, I just continued to bandage my leg. I couldn't even wear garments. My leg was too large for garments. Garments didn't really do a whole lot for me. So I stayed in bandages 24/7, and I continued therapy and treatment and used a pump and really started working out to continue the movement. As we know, lymphedema progresses as we get older. And if I was already at this stage, I was worried what would happen later on in my life. So not only did I go on a reduction journey, but I went on an age reversing journey from the inside out. And I paid attention to what I was putting into my body just as much as how much I was moving it, so to speak. And I saw a transformation within my body very, very quickly. And I knew immediately nutrition was a big trigger for me. So I had changed all of my habits. And this was before we even really talked about nutrition as far as me and the therapist or anything. I just was listening to my body, and that's what it was telling me. And then a couple years later, I had ran into a doctor in California at another event, and I'd run into him quite a few times, and we had talked, but I was really unsure if I wanted to have surgery again. I didn't know if I could mentally handle another failed procedure. I didn't know. And I knew financially this would be my last everything I've had, because as you know, most of these procedures are really hard to get coverage, or the post-op care, or the treatment that comes with it. It's very difficult. So I'd given everything I'd saved. I even took out a loan. I did everything for one last time. And I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. Not only was I able to get all my money back, because we got the insurance to cover it, which was like a 2-year battle in itself, but I have a life that I dreamt of since I was a child. And yes, I still well. And yes, you still have to wear compression and listen to my body, but lymphedema, it really is my blessing. It helps me stay grounded as an individual. It helps me stay focused, and it helps with my mental health to understand why I have it. Why I have it.
Well, this is absolutely unbelievable for me, because that's indeed like leitmotif in what you are saying, that this is your blessing, which is the unbelievable thing to say. And but you know, I went through your wonderful book that I would advise to everybody, which is drop the skirt. And this is your story, how my disability became my superpower. And I can understand that indeed, in a way, it gave a kind of super purpose to your life, because now you are helping the others, and maybe you wouldn't be there without lymphedema.
No, absolutely. I really feel that lymphedema is my blessing, and they say your gift will make room for you. And when I was younger, I wanted to cut my gift off. You know, I did not want this, and I didn't even know what this was. But I'm so thankful that the calling on my life is lymphedema, and I'm so thankful that I was chosen for this, because that I am strong enough for it. And I don't know what else I would be doing. I don't know. And I don't even think about it. I just think about the next step in moving forward, you know, the next step in spreading awareness, the next step in innovating treatment, innovating procedures, innovating, you know, research is so important, but so is current treatment for today. Educating the parents, you know, moving forward with the children, and, you know, those children will grow up to be adults. And, you know, if we pour into them today, they won't have those problems that I walked in for all those years. And I walked that path for them. I walked that journey for them. And I'm so thankful for it. I'm so thankful for it, because I meet so many amazing people in the world that I would never meet normally. And I get to talk to so many amazing people, and you instantly connect, and knowing that you can be that beacon of light for someone is it's only within here that you know that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So you know, drop the skirt. Funny how I got the title drop the skirt. A lot of people are like, why did you choose that? And I have a story for everything, but
Go ahead with the story. Why did I do?
you know, so I worked in a corporate job, and I had a very good job, and everyone dressed, you know, accordingly to corporate standards. Not that we had to, but you feel that, you know, you don't want to look out of the part that you're working. And I wore long dresses and skirts because I was hiding my leg. I couldn't put my leg in pants. It wouldn't fit. And so one day I asked a coworker if she wanted to go swimming. And when I say swimming, I had this whole plan how I get into the pool, and I hide my leg, and then I uncover it in the pool. I had this whole plan so people didn't see my leg in a bathing suit. I doubt it worked. I'm sure people saw it, you know. But so I asked her to go swimming, and she had made a joke about her weight, and she said fat girls don't swim in public pools. And that really broke my heart to how she was speaking about herself, because I had never saw her that way. I just saw her as a friend. And right then and there, I knew I had to share my secret. And I said in a joking manner, I said, well, at least your fat is distributed evenly, you know. And she was, what are you talking about? And I lifted my skirt and I showed her my leg that day. And we laughed so hard that we were crying, because she thought I was wearing skirts and dresses for religious reasons. I thought I was hiding it just to look good. Like, we were so wrong about the whole situation. And I'd realized right then and there, if I did so good hiding my condition, what could I do if I exposed it? And that's the day I dropped the skirt and I stopped hiding my leg. So that is the very the dress I was wearing when I had that conversation.
Well,
So,
that's a fantastic story.
you know, and
Honestly.
yeah, it's you know, I remember talking to my editor and my marketing team. They're like, we got to put a picture of your faces. No, I want this. This is what I want, and this is how I want it. And I'm sticking true to what my calling is and what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm so glad I stuck up to them and said no. Of course, they didn't really give me a fight afterwards. They're like, oh, that's a brilliant idea, after I explained my why, you know. And we're really glad that we stuck with that title. So I give the book away a lot to people who need it. I didn't write it to, you know, win the awards that I won. I'm blessed that I was able to win, you know, an Indie Book Award in women's literature and write another book and be an international bestseller. And never in a million years did I think sharing my story would turn into something like this. But I'm so glad it did, because the more people I can reach, the easier their journey will be for them.
At VitaSupport MD, we believe in creating the best bioflavonoid-based supplements to support your vitality. Bioflavonoids are found in abundance in nature and support excellent health and wellness. The demands and stresses being put on our bodies in these challenging times are unlike any we have seen before. Support your body with the flavonoids it needs to fight inflammation and oxidation. Unlike other products in the marketplace, VitaSupport MD dietary supplements use micronized flavonoids for optimal absorption and effectiveness. Micronization is an advanced process which creates an ultra-fine powder easily absorbed by the body. At VitaSupport MD, we are passionate about making your good health our life's work.
Yeah, and globally speaking, you know, this is absolutely unbelievable situation, because you truly discover that the other people had the different issue, and they are not only they are not aware of your medical situation, but they are hiding too. So in a way, you know, we indeed are in the society of hiding, or like having the very superficial approach, and not going into the depth of what is happening. And we are trying to break it with our Lymphcast, because indeed we need to put the lymphedema problem out for the public. You know, we need to show the people that this is indeed a very disabling and not at all a desperate disease. We can do something about it, and you are the beautiful example.
Thank you. You know, and that's the thing. I share a lot of my health journey on social media, and some people are like, whoa, why do you do that? And some people, you know, I get DMs on a daily basis like, thank you for sharing this. I thought I was the only one. And I do share a lot of TMI information about myself, because when I look back, I maybe wouldn't have been misdiagnosed for so long if someone else would have shared their information. And it's not to say to put anyone down in where they are in their journey, but it's important to speak about these things so we can get more help and get eyes on the problem and find a solution. And most importantly, for you not to feel like you're the only one suffering. And I had just recently shared a very personal situation I have going on with myself, with my central lymphatic system. And I had shared what was going on and what are the next steps and so forth. And I got all these messages where women and their daughters were experiencing some of the same things I was experiencing in that area. And they thought one thought it was an STD, one thought it was just something abnormal. Like, you know, all these things go through your head because you don't know. And the reality is there's many of us experiencing the same symptoms So we need to focus on that now. And we need to bring that to the forefront to see if it's connected in any way, shape, or form. And then hopefully present a solution for the future patient and so forth. So that's why I do share my story or my medical journey so much, is because in hopes that I do help someone who's suffering in silence.
Tell us a little bit about that absolutely a crazy story when you, being a young girl, 16-year-old, you won a beauty contest for the young pageant.
Yeah. Yeah, I always forget about when, like I'm building out a lymphedema blueprint course right now, and my coach, who is Tony Robbins, asked, like, what are your accolades? And I, well, I do this. And then he said, no, well, start from the beginning. And I always forget because I guess what I experienced was coming from a negative place. Even though it had a positive outcome, it came from a negative place. And so I always just kind of forget about it. But it is part of my journey, and it taught me a lot. And so when I was in high school and I was being bullied, being called the girl with the elephant leg and all these other, amazing names other than Amy, I decided I was going to enter a beauty pageant because A, I could wear a long dress, so, that was a plus. And B, my leg wasn't as bad as it got to be at that time, so I could still wear some things and hide it a little bit. So I thought, oh, great, I can do this. The reason I wanted to win is because I wanted that title on that sash. And I knew if I won that sash and I took it to school or I told everyone I won this beauty pageant, they would forget my name as the girl with the big leg. They would call me whatever that title was on that, sash. And so I convinced my parents to let me go in this beauty pageant. They did not want to go in there at all, or want me to go in there at all. They, looking back, they probably were trying to prevent me from being hurt, But as teenagers, we know everything, and you're not going to be able to convince me otherwise. And so I convinced them to let me enter this beauty pageant. And I do the whole beauty pageant, and at the very end, I get up to share my why. Why is it important for me to win this title? And the title was Miss Junior America. And it was with a certain pageant. There's different companies, and this was with just a certain one. And so I had went to Miss Missouri and Miss Teen Missouri, and next was this Junior America. That I could really do this. I had not entered all the other pageants. This was my one and only pageant I'd ever entered. My second one. But at this level, my first real big pageant. I see all these girls with professional makeup artists and, people doing their hair, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this all myself. I'm way out of my league. I was ready to turn around and go home. And my mom said, nope, you drove me nuts for this. We are doing this. And so I remember getting on the stage, and I had prepared, and I had forgotten everything I prepared for. Just forgotten. And so I stood there and I said, I don't belong here. I belong in a circus. I don't belong here. And I'm trying to change my identity, and I'd forgotten everything. And I shared what was under my dress, but I didn't share a whole lot. I didn't talk a whole lot about it. But I was very honest that I just didn't belong there. And I remember standing, I kept getting called up as the finalist and getting called up as a finalist. I'm like, they're just giving me the pity finalist. We feel sorry for you because you forgot your speech and all this stuff. They don't know if I'm really telling the truth about my leg. How much are they really paying attention? And if you know me and you know my story, I love looking at ankles. I only had one good ankle, so I always looked at ankles. And I looked, I was looking at people's ankles. I'm like, those are cute shoes. And, I always daydreamed of wearing certain shoes. And as I was daydreaming, they called my name and I missed it. And then they called my name again. And I woke up, just came out of my daze. And I looked around and the shock on my parents' face was, it was amazing. And like, wow, you really didn't think I was going to do it kind of thing. But it really was incredible. I ended up winning the pageant and I was on cloud 9 for at least 48 hours. You know, wow, I really won it. I'm this junior America hostess and doing all this stuff and the huge crown and the huge trophy and all the stuff. That lasted, you know, like I said, about 48 hours. And then I was quickly called at school the beauty queen with the big leg, which is on the back of my book. And the reason that is when I stood on that stage, I wanted to change who I was. I went through an identity crisis, and I'm sure many other lymphedema thrivers do as well. And I wanted to be so far away or removed from whatever was attached to me that I went to that extreme to change who I was. Even though I won, it was very detrimental to me, so to speak. Years later, fast forward, I decided to do a fashion show for the NLN, and it was the first time in over 20-something years that I was back on a stage. And this time I was there to represent the very thing I was hiding on the previous stage. And I felt more beautiful there than I had ever felt on the other stage. So I often forget about the first beauty pageant because I always think about the NLN, if that makes sense. But that first pageant taught me a lot. It doesn't matter what the title is. It doesn't matter how much makeup you put on, how many dresses you wear. Just be true who you are and be true to what is with you, and you will make it through any diverse situation. You know, that's what makes us the onion. We have so many layers from so many experiences. And I'm thankful yet again for that experience because I know who I am today. And I knew who I was the moment I stepped on the NLN stage and did what I did. So that's the beauty pageant story.
And indeed, you know, it was your first step maybe to find yourself.
Yeah, it really, I didn't even know it, but I was actually advocating for myself before I even knew what I was doing. I just did it in kind of a negative way in a sense, but I spoke up for the first time, accepting how I felt, because I never wanted to accept how I felt. And when I said I don't belong here, that's truly how I felt. And they showed me otherwise, and that was great. But I belong here as much as anybody else, you know?
Do you have any question, John?
Well, I've had the good fortune of knowing Amy for some time, and her story is just really moving. And it's one of these situations where I don't know that I have too much to add. I think today's episode is an opportunity for us to share very intimately and very openly the life of a real person with this disorder, who has gone through so many of the things that were the inspiration for this program, so that they can share. We have a great panel of experts here, and we have our background, our input, our advice, our clinical expertise, acumen, et cetera. But moments like today are the moments to really highlight the superstars of this disorder, these disorders, and this profession of medicine, because this is what ultimately we do, is we take care of real people. And I sometimes get on my soapbox a little bit on our program because we have the right to do so, because it's our program. So my concern is that our profession, in some ways, as it grows and improves and we have more technology, more pharmacology, more expertise, in some ways we're moving in the wrong direction in terms of the volume of patients that physicians are seeing, the disruption of the personal relationship between the physician and the patient. And we're hearing and seeing the same stories again and again. As you know, I always take copious notes, but it bothers me, obviously, tremendously when I see words being used about our colleagues. And we're not here to bash our colleagues. We're here to educate our colleagues and in many ways celebrate our colleagues who are doing so much good work for so many people. But there's always room for improvement. When patients refer to us as rude, as disrespectful, when they frequently, again and again, regale us with stories of never having been examined, when the patient says, this physician never even looked at my leg. Now, that was many years ago. You could say, well, things have changed and so on and so forth. But I'm a physician in clinical practice right outside of New York City, a stone's throw from the George Washington Bridge. And I see patients every single day in my practice who are here for second and third opinions, who say again and again and again, nobody ever examined me. Nobody ever looked at my legs. Nobody ever asked me to put on an examining gown or a pair of shorts. Nobody ever asked me to take off my street clothes. You know, this is wonderful. Now, they're giving me accolades that I don't deserve when they tell you're the greatest doctor in the world. You're the best doctor I've ever seen. What I'm doing is first year clinical medical training, third year of medical school, history and physical examination. And we're skipping those steps. You go straight to the CAT scan. You go straight to the MRI. You go straight to the whatever to make the blood work. Let's run a SMA 275. We'll get every blood test ever invented. And then we'll analyze it by looking, what's in the abnormal column and try to make sense of it. We're in some ways losing our way. And I think that's a very important part of this program, is to bring we physicians back to our center, which is patient care, physical examination, history. And, they use the word healthcare and healthcare insurance and healthcare companies and healthcare systems. I'm seeing less and less care, that people actually care about one another, that the physician actually cares about the patient. And I know the panel of people that I've put together here do care, and I think many physicians care, but I'm concerned that we're moving in a direction where it may eventually be the exception rather than the rule. And to meet somebody like Amy Rivera and to hear her story and to know her personally reminds me that it's a great privilege to be a physician and a surgeon and to have these kinds of relationships. And that for the physicians who are losing sight of that, I implore everyone, refocus on what it's all about and why we all got into this profession, to take care of people. And I know that our dear co-host, Dr. Emily Iker, who's got her own story to tell about lymphedema and so forth, has really been a champion of this disease and has been a champion of these patients and has been a champion of the patients who have been misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, mistreated, untreated, tossed aside, pushed aside, been treated cruelly. One of the words that I have here is cruelty. When somebody tells a young woman you're going to live the rest of your life in a wheelchair without even giving a diagnosis, this is cruel. The students in school were cruel. Now, the students in school, we can give a pass, they're young and immature and so forth. But for a physician to tell a young woman who he's never examined or she's never examined, you're going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, it brought tears to my eyes. I mean, I had tears well up in my eyes to hear that. And so I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Iker because she has so much experience in this. But before I do, I just want to use one more word that I wrote down in big letters here: courage. Amy has such great courage, and it is her calling, and she is strong enough for it, and it is meant to be. But her courage started as a teenager. Imagine a young woman with this disfigurement, although milder at that time, which we understand, but still a disfigurement, still being name called, still being harassed, still being bullied at school, to have the courage and the self-esteem to want to go into the beauty pageant, that she still saw herself and perceived herself as a beautiful young woman. That brought tears to my eyes. I mean, it's an amazing story.
The new book, Drop the Skirt, How My Disability Became My Superpower by Amy Rivera, is a memoir of discovery and empowerment that took her from a life of shame and hiding into one of enlightenment and how to live her best life. Amy tells the story of her daily lymphedema battle, a battle that has shaped her life and given her the strength to fight for others. Through lifelong adversity with her disability, Amy developed an activist mindset and feverishly fought to better the quality of her life. Against all odds, through medicine, nutrition, and faith, Amy's journey has led her to overcome her severe lymphedema and manage it with minimal maintenance. Amy is the founder of Ninjas Fighting Lymphedema, a non-profit organization dedicated to the awareness of lymphedema and the education of others. Amy has become the #1 activist and influencer for lymphatic disorders in today's digital media and has dedicated her life to the philanthropic and educational activities that bring hope and help to others who suffer from similar chronic disorders. Check out her new book, Drop the Skirt, How My Disability Became My Superpower, available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com.
So with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Emily, to get some of your thoughts, if you would.
First of all, I wish that you would be closer so I can embrace you. You are an inspiration to all of us.
Is that Amy or me?
Well, let's see. All of you. All of you. And what an incredible story. I knew a little bit about you, but not to the detail that you expressed. I mean, before I tell you a little bit about me, have you met Dr. Mike? I think his last name is Pushin, who is doing research on biobridging.
I have.
Okay, good. We can talk about it later. Okay.
Well, I'll see you at the AVLS too.
Oh, excellent, because that would be another thought. Professor Olszewski showed way back when we have a lymphatic system that is stagnating and aging and not functioning, then it becomes almost like cemented tube, and therefore nothing will pass through. So it doesn't matter how many lymph node transfer you are going to have, it's not going to take. And today we do the indocyanide green study before we approach any more challenging surgical intervention. But anyhow, I keep saying you had to go through these challenges on the right side too. And in holistic medicine, that is the masculine side. Just like I have my right lower extremity because I had lymphoma when I came to the United States. And because I am an achiever, once was not enough for me, so I had to have it second time. So I had double radiation and so on, so on. Today, I am grateful that I am alive, but way back when somebody said, well, you could have been a good surgeon, because I was in a surgical training in residency, in my second year of residency, and they say, well, now you talk everywhere about lymphedema, so you are queen of swelling. So okay, it's not fun to live with lymphedema, but you gave me an inspiration, so maybe at the AVLF I will come in a skirt because I am also hiding it in all kinds of, but compliments of so much radiation, there is a combination of atrophy as well, so it's not as large. But you know what I keep saying, God gives us this gift, so we are selected for this path to educate, to live with this, to learn about ourselves, to treasure what we have, and to function. And this is what I'm telling the patients too. You know, today I had a wonderful lady, a very beautiful young 48-year-old young lady, and she was so bummed out because she has lymphedema. And I said, the cup is always half full, not half empty. And so fortunately today we have more advances than we had when I started in early 80s with lymphedema, but we have surgical intervention. And now I think that the bio-bridging would be an option for you and maybe in the future for me as well, where the new lymphatic channels can be formed and eventually function. There was a presentation at the European Group of Lymphology as well as the World Congress of Lymphology, and this was Olszewski study where he inserted some tubing system, hoping that it will function. And this was on very, very advanced filariasis patients. So some of the lymph fluid leaked out, but once you don't have lymphangiomes and they are not functioning, and our wonderful Dr. Mark Melin is there with glycocalyx, and you cannot put any glycocalyx into the tubing system, then it's not going to work. And as we know, lymphatic system is a very, very complex system, and it's not, when we don't know, unless something is wrong with lymphatic system, we don't even know how fantastic the lymphatic system is and how well it functions, and so on, so on. So compliments that you had to go through all these challenges, and look at you, how inspirational you are to all of us. My admiration, and I'm looking forward to meet you at the conference. I will arrive on Thursday evening, and I think my talk is on Friday morning, but then I'll be there until Sunday. So we'll catch up and we'll meet with Monika too, because we already promising each other either breakfast, lunch, or dinner or something.
Yeah.
Whatever, just to be together.
Whatever.
I'm sorry that I'm not going to be there. Now let's have Dr. Melin jump in. Mark, I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Really, two words to fit on courage, John, was boldness, right? So your boldness is incredible, because that's what allows you to thrive, but that's also what the impact you can have for others in being able to understand the process. So, okay, so I really need your advice, Amy. I've got a son in medical school. I've got a son in medical urology resident. I've got a daughter-in-law who's in medical school. My son Davis is in the DO, so doctor of osteopathy. And then my other two are in regular medical training. But we need you in front of like medical students across the country, because the training is not there on lymphedema, but we need the science, we need the art, and we need the heart. And so how would you do this?
How would I train them?
Yeah, how are we going to get it down to that level to start to work back upstream to impact the generation? Because I share in John's disappointment, but it's the reality of where our system is, and your boldness and your ability to thrive really can change the medical system, especially in the network you hang out with. So I'm actually asking you to help us change the medical system.
It's my lifelong dream. It's what I want to do. To share with you, I have a very large goal to win a Nobel Peace Prize, and I've written that goal down. I've written a date down. I may not reach that date for that goal, but every day I strive to push forward towards it is the day I can help another individual, and it's a community effort. And part of that community effort is changing the dialogue between the medical professionals and the patients, because it's not just the medical professionals who are missing that dot. It's us as patients as well. So we have to have that nice dialogue between each other. We as patients have to have the understanding that it's our body and we have to be an advocate for it. We also have to be able to express and explain what's going on with our bodies in a professional way. And, we want to blame the doctors and stuff. We want to get so angry, and I understand up to a certain point, but we have to take responsibility for ourselves as well. And that's part of it. Really easy, how to get everyone's attention. Really easy. You have a lymphatic system. You don't have to be born with primary lymphedema, and you don't have to develop cancer to develop secondary lymphedema. You can develop lymphedema in several different ways. And what we need to understand is what the lymphatic system actually does and just how important it is to our bodies. And we understand the function of our bodies, then we will understand what happens when it malfunctions and how to move that fluid when we do have a missing or a malfunctioning lymphatic system. At the end of the day, everybody should be listening to lymphatic health and understanding lymphatic health, because we all have a lymphatic system somewhere in our body. I mean, I'm a 0.2% missing somewhere, but that's, we have to be able to drop the, I'm just going to say it, drop the egos in some areas, and not just in the physicians or the therapists, but even in patients. We have to be able to communicate effectively with each other and in a respectful manner. And if we're able to get the attention of the students and say, you may not have lymphedema. This is how I got the 121 students, which, by the way, they're all really good at taking selfies. They were like, click, click, real fast. A girl drew a picture of me as I was speaking. I really connected with them, and none of them knew what lymphedema was or what the lymphatic system did. But I was able to connect with them on a human level to say, this is what our body's made of. Here's what we need to pay attention to, because this is more common than what you think. And then when you provide the science and the data and the heart, they're going to listen. And that's what you really have to do, is get their attention. Say, hey, this could be you or a loved one day. And this is what we need to do to prevent it, or to make sure we manage it or treat it. It's, not everyone has, they think lymphedema is so rare, but it's not. Or they think lipedema is so rare, but it's not. And, in order to see that, we have to have that line of communication open.
Let me jump in there a second, because again, it highlights something that we've talked about a lot, and we're going to talk about a lot more, because repetition is the mother of all education. So we're going to go over things a lot on this program. Early recognition and diagnosis are so essential here. Early recognition and diagnosis. Anyone can make the diagnosis that maybe not the diagnosis, but any idiot physician can make the observation something is wrong when you have a leg that's 200% larger than the opposite limb. Then that person knows, well, I don't know what's wrong with you, but obviously there's something wrong here. Unfortunately, in many ways at that point, it's a little bit too late to get the kind of ideal results that we're looking for. So early detection in infancy, childhood, weeks or even days after surgical intervention for nodal dissection and so on and so forth, that's the time physicians have to be acutely aware that something is going on, something is going wrong, intervention is required, nutritional, hands-on therapy, elevation, wrapping, compression, et cetera, et cetera. And I was very disturbed. I had a very wonderful experience in the last couple of weeks. I had a fellow in interventional radiology through the Harvard system shadow me in my practice. He has an interest in venous medicine as he's finishing his fellowship. And he spent a 2-week rotation, a formal rotation as part of his education with me. And we had a wonderful experience together the last 2 weeks. But this is a highly educated, this is a cream of the crop American medical trainee who went to medical school in California, went to college out there in medical school and so forth. And he's telling me, this is a gentleman, his early 30s now, that gross anatomy laboratory is severely curtailed in many of the schools now. And he did have gross anatomy, but they don't actually perform the dissections anymore. They have pre-dissected cadavers, specimens that they go and examine and study. Well, for something like the lymphatic system, you're going to be missing out on a lot if you don't have gross anatomy, including the arterial system, the venous system, every system. But if we're going to start cutting corners in American medical education, for anyone who's listening, physicians who are in the academic space, et cetera, let me, as a board-certified cardiovascular and general surgeon, be the first one to say out loud, and I'm sure I'm not the first one, but let me add my voice. That's not the place to cut corners in basic fundamental gross anatomy and the human body. It's those kinds of asinine decisions that are being made for whatever reason, financial, lack of cadaver. I don't know what the reasons are. I'm sure there are myriad reasons. None of them is, in my book, acceptable. This would be like trying to be a Nobel laureate in literature and not being taught the alphabet. You know, just start reading by ear and writing by ear and sounding things out. We need to get back to the basics in this profession: history and physical examination, the human touch, touching the patient, okay, understanding gross anatomy, basic anatomy, histology, physiology, biochemistry, all of the super specialty, subspecialty fellowships and all of this, that's wonderful. You can do that on your own time later. But if we don't train physicians in this country and around the world who have sound fundamentals in what they're doing, you're not going to have good medicine. I mean, and we're hearing it again and again, over and over on this program, and it's very disturbing.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree.
And I don't know, to Mark's point, I don't even know, Mark, what the current attitude is. I mean, I had a wonderful, phenomenal, you brought to mind, phenomenal neurology professor in medical school who used to bring his patients to the lecture hall. Now, today, I don't know what they might think of that. Is that exploitation? Is that humiliation? Is that harassment? But we learned so much in seeing those patients with the professor, examining the patient, demonstrating the patient's neurological deficit. I still remember he brought a patient who couldn't recognize a cat visually, but when he put it in her hands and touched the cat, she could say that it was a cat. You know, and that kind of experience stays with you as a student and as a physician. We're onto something important in this show beyond lymphedema and lipedema, and the essence of our profession in many ways, I think, is at risk here.
Well, and our hearts are the softest and most impressionable in first and second year medical school. And that's where, Amy, your message can resonate so widely, is in those first 2 to first 4 years of medical school, because once we reach residency, we start to get, because of the warrior mentality of what's going on in residency, there's a subtle shift. And so I do think the medical schools, John, to your point, are the bastions of really foundational elemental education, because ultimately in the residencies, and I'm thinking about, it's the pediatricians. I just think about the pediatrician who was with your mom and was with you and who simply didn't know. And then we can think about internal medicine. We can think about family practice, orthopedic surgery, right? John and I, Andrew Wickline, who we've been talking about, orthopedic surgeons have great opportunities. And the reasoning is, if you pick up on lymphedema that is very subtle in your patient you're just about to do an ankle or knee surgery on, and you slow down and prehab and get that patient ready, the outcomes are better. And now the patient has the education, the family has the education, and they accelerate through the surgery. And now their quality of life measures are all better. Because, Amy, everything you're describing is quality of life measures. And that's a big marker of success that administrators certainly look for, hospital systems look for. So I'm just thinking of these other avenues where your message can really resonate to get a foothold to help, again, change the medical system. Because we need help, right, Monika and Emily and John?
Absolutely. And I was thinking that, the Amy's wonderful example because she's a fighter. You are a fighter, Amy. And you created something absolutely exceptional, which is the Ninja Fighting Lymphedema Foundation. And you are actively active warrior in a way to change the situation on different level. And I wanted you to tell this story when you came to see the senator to convince him about the importance of lymphedema and how you managed to get there and to change the opinion of this person.
Yeah. So, go back to Ninjas Fighting Lymphedema. Again, there's a story. People ask me why I chose Ninjas Fighting Lymphedema, and the reason I chose that was I'm a natural born fighter, obviously, and I wanted my personality to shine through my mission and my vision. And I had worked with Learn. I had volunteered for a long time with them, and I really wanted to learn as much as I could about lymphedema and about what was out there. And so I volunteered for a full year so I could learn underneath the best of what was going on. And then from that moment forward, I saw the importance of research, and I saw the importance of we need to stop hiding we're hiding in broad daylight, just like ninjas do. Ninjas hide in daylight. And so that's why I said Ninjas Fighting Lymphedema, because I wanted to bring us forward into the light. And right after I started the foundation, I was very green and new to this community. I went from not knowing anything about lymphedema to becoming a diagnosed patient, then to become a thriver, then an advocate, and then from an advocate to an executive, and then from an executive now to an international business owner for lymphedema and an author. Like I've went through, the stages of becoming a butterfly, so to speak. And through that, I've learned a whole lot. And the insurance game, that's one I just don't, oh man, I'll just be nice and say it's a rough journey. But when I went to Washington, D.C., and it was before the foundation became the foundation, I lobbied with the Lymphedema Treatment Act. And I've been told stories about D.C., and I've heard things, but it was not quite what I experienced, what I thought I was going to experience. And I was very angry right off the bat with how the gentleman treated me as a woman to begin with. And then how they treated me. Dr. Iker's laughing. It was terrible. I was with a therapist named Louisa Boyd. She was like my protector with some of these individuals who just wouldn't leave me alone, wanted to talk to me. But then she was also my protector because some of them were very rude to me. And this one was, bless his heart, he got a schooling that day. This is when my leg was very large, and I was wearing just a ready wrap, like a Medi ready wrap. And so we're waiting to speak to him. And he comes in talking about his nephew needs a $70,000 wheelchair for his disease and how he should have that because it's for his disease. He was just talking about this as he was walking in to meet with us. So he finishes that conversation. And I thought, great, he's going to understand why we're asking for this. I was told in that meeting that insurance was a privilege, not a right. I was told that this, whatever this is, how detrimental is it to you? And he would, this. So I unwrapped my leg, and I remember I had a couple people in the room with me. And I said, well, since this is a privilege and not a right, what do you call this? Because this privilege I've paid for year after year after year, called insurance. And if I have a privilege, that means I don't have to pay for this, correct? It means I don't have to pay for insurance. But yet, then you tell me I'm going to get a fine if I don't pay for this privilege. And then when I pay for the privilege, you tell me I can't use it. And then I had a spreadsheet. I put all my EOBs in it, my surgical costs, everything that would cost me to reduce, and everything that would have costed if I was basically at a preventable stage of getting to where I was. At the end of the day, it's about $1 to them. It's about the nickel. It's about the bottom line. And since I wasn't going to get to his heart, I got to his pocket. And then I brought the visual out and showed my leg. And right then and there, he decided he was going to be a co-sponsor. And he decided to change his mind. But I was very angry, very angry. I was ready to get escorted out there. I was so angry.
Well, he needed an education, and he got one. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people who need an education, and that's why we're here. And one of the other words that I wrote down when Monika started the program with the introduction, this word combatant. And really, you are a combatant and a warrior and a ninja in broad daylight. And we need more voices like yours. And really, what we're doing here is trying to provide a platform and bring as many people from as many backgrounds with as many perspectives and as many points of view and as many stories as we possibly can, and shine a bright light on this and give it a microphone and give it a camera, and largely stay out of the way of the superstars like you, so that you can shine and help spread the message and spread the word, because the lymphatic system is really sort of the forgotten organ system of the human body, not by lay people, but even by physicians, surgeons. And generally speaking, like much of the human body, there's so much forgiveness within the system that we get arrogant about it. Mark knows, as a vascular surgeon, and myself, having dissected who knows how many thousands of groins to do bypass surgery and things like that, and dividing lymphatic tissue in the groin sort of, very brazenly and so forth, that patients almost never get a swollen limb. And it's almost remarkable that's the case. So there is a lot of redundancy generally, and a lot of forgiveness in this incredible organ system. I think of the lymphatic system as an organ system, obviously, but for such an incredibly important part of the human body to be essentially unknown to medical professionals. What could we possibly expect of politicians or bureaucrats or insurance salesmen? If our own colleagues are so ignorant of this incredibly complex system, the role that it plays in our body to keep us healthy, to keep us alive, to keep us physically, quote unquote, in balance, normal, physically appealing, however you want to put it, this incredible system has really been neglected, ignored, and abused in many ways. And we're going to continue to be in your army and fight alongside you. You guys, yourself, and the other people like you, Cam Ayala, who was with us on our last program, you're the 5-star generals, the field generals, the battlefield generals, and we're just soldiers, I think, in this war. And that's another philosophy that needs to come back to medicine in the United States, that the patient is at the top of the pyramid, not the doctor, not the insurance company, not the senator, not the almighty dollar, the patient. And that's where you belong. And we're going to help to elevate you all back to those positions, because we're all going to have a chance to be a patient, even all the doctors. So we better create that platform and stick by it. So I think we're unfortunately out of time. I'm going to hand it back to Paul. And Paul, maybe you can close it up. I know, Paul, you're going to be very disappointed that we had another uninteresting guest and another non-stimulating conversation. And I know you want to quit the show, but we'll talk afterward, and I'll twist your arm to stay with us.
Well, that's okay, since before the show I elevated Dr. Melin and you. I gave you brand new positions in the country, so why not? Just throw all caution to the wind here.
Well, just to be clear, the resident with me was from Harvard. I'm definitely not from Harvard.
Okay. Well, definitely another very powerful show. You've been listening to Lymphcast, listening and or watching to Lymphcast episode number 10. I'd like to thank our panel from Arizona, Dr. Monika Gloviczki. First of all, Dr. Gloviczki, thank you very much for being here and all of your input. And then if you take a moment to thank Amy on behalf of all of us, we'd appreciate that.
Thank you very much. And as you said, I'm so grateful that Amy accepted to be our guest, because her story will certainly be inspiration for us and for those who will listen this podcast. All
right, and Amy Rivera, thank you very much. A very powerful story. You had all of us practically in tears, maybe actually in tears, but thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, and it's been an honor, and I look forward to working with all of you on future projects.
Excellent. Also from California, Dr. Emily Iker. Dr. Iker, thank you very much for everything today.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Monika, for bringing Amy. This was an incredible story.
All right. Also from Minnesota, Dr. Mark Melin. Dr. Melin, thank you very much for all of your input today, sir.
Thank you, Amy. Humbling. Thank you.
Thank you, and let's work together. Let's change the dialogue for others.
All right, very good. And the creator of the show and also the co-founder of VitaSupport MD, makers of Vein Formula 1000, Lymphatic Formula 1000, physician surgeon from New Jersey, Dr. John A. Chuback. Dr. Chuback, thank you for everything, putting the show together, and obviously all of your input today.
I should also take this opportunity to thank Amy Rivera as a champion of our lymphatic formula over the years. She has been really a force in spreading the word about bioflavonoids and MPFF and the role that it plays in dietary supplementation for patients with lymphedema. I feel every time we close, I feel blessed to have friends like all of you and colleagues like all of you. And this is important work, and thank you for joining me in it and being a part of it. I feel blessed to be with you all each time.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. And again, you've been watching and listening to Lymphcast episode number 10. We'll see you next time for episode 11. Again, Lymphcast. Go out there and have a great day and evening. We'll talk again soon. Thank you.